Hey, I'm Hannah, sharing my adventures around the world while working full time. Hey guys, Hannah from Destined for Adventure here. So, this is my April summary or life update and some travel data tips for you. So, April was a very different kind of month. If you've been following my life as a digital nomad, you're probably used to travel, hikes, adventures. But April was about slowing down, being present with family, and slowly finding my way back into normal life after losing my dad in March. So the beginning of April was about family and loss. We had my dad's celebration of life service on March 31st, the very last day in March. So going into April, my brother and I stayed with my mom for the next couple of weeks to help her with a lot of different things. So we helped with things like car maintenance, cleaning the house, donations, going through my dad's office, and all of his hobby supplies. It was a mix of practical things and emotional ones. And I also went back to work part time during that period, which I'm really grateful for that flexibility that allowed me to still be there for my mom and help with things, but also ease back into my usual routine. Easter also happened to fall during that time, and it was a nice day. So my mom and I went to her usual sunrise Easter church service by the water down in Solomon's Island, something that she likes to go to every year. And I was able to accompany her, so that was nice. And then we come home and had a simple meal. So my mom cooked up some turkey, my brother made mashed potatoes, and mom made gravy, and it was just the three of us. So very traditional meal for us, but simple and special. I also was able to connect with some friends, which was great. I got to meet up with my friend Monica. We grabbed lunch at a Vietnamese cafe and stopped in a Mexican bakery we had both seen. And she was able to find her favorite cream cheese Mexican sweetbread. So she was really happy about that. And it was just really nice to connect with her. And, after some hard and heavy weeks, do something that was fun and enjoyable. And I also got back into teaching for my Spanish business. So I even had a new Spanish student take up classes with me, and I've had a couple consultations with potential students as well. So just kind of getting back into my normal routine. And had a girls' night with friends at one of my friends' houses. We did charcuterie, a hot tub, and some relaxing. I ended up staying the night over, and it was a really nice reset. The one of the reasons I stayed the night was because the next morning I got up at 5:30 in the morning and I headed into Washington D.C. So my friend lives closer to the metro than my mom does, so I figured it would make more sense to stay up there. And I took the metro into D.C. It had been a while since I spent any time in the city, and I got to the very end of the National Cherry Blossom Festival, which is celebrated in DC. There's a lot of cherry blossom trees that were a gift from Japan all around the tidal basin, around all the main monuments in Washington, DC. There weren't too many blossoms left by the time I got up there, but it was still really cool. I wanted to go early in the morning before all of the crowds. So I was able to walk around most of the monuments and get some pictures and just kind of enjoy a quieter side of DC. I did a little breakfast picnic as well. And then I was also able to catch the Cherry Blossom Festival parade, which was very cool. Tons of floats, marching bands, military bands. Yeah, just like in those giant inflatables and all kind of cool stuff. So that was pretty neat. At the same time, I was also managing things remotely for my house and my animals back home. So coordinating pet care between a pet sitter, local friend, my boyfriend, the veterinarian, and kind of getting everybody where they needed to be and make sure they had enough supplies and everybody knows what's happening and everybody is taken care of and all that kind of stuff. So managing all those logistics and bills and whatnot while I'm away. And then in the middle of April on the 17th, I took my brother to the airport. So he flew back home to Seattle. And that was a definite shift in the month. So I left my mom's house when I took him to the airport and I headed up kind of to the north of the state of Maryland, well, more to the north than where my mom lives, and stayed with my best friend's mom here in Annapolis, which is where I am now. And me and my best friend Sarah did a girls' weekend in Ocean City. It was really nice. She brought her dog Soriana, which is a Mexican dog that she rescued while we were there in Mexico. So a dog I had pulled off the street in front of the grocery store Soriana, one of the grocery store Soriana. And Sarah just fell in love with her and she rescued her. And that dog is just living her best life. So we had a great time at our girls' weekend in Ocean City. I don't think I've been to Ocean City since I was a child. So it was really cool. It was very cold because it's the off season, but it was really nice. The hotel was super reasonable, right on the boardwalk and pet friendly because it's the off season. The prices were very reasonable. There was no crowds. We were right on the boardwalk and it was just really enjoyable. It wasn't the kind of weather to like get and swim in the ocean or lay out and tan, but we did some walks on the beach and eating at some restaurants, Ripley's, believe it or not. So it was really nice. I also took one of my dad's cameras. He was really into photography, and I kind of tried it out, pressing different things and experimenting with it. Did a little photo shoot of my best friend Sarah and her dog. So that was really fun. And then I started rebuilding my routine. So once we got back from Ocean City, I joined the gym, which is nearby to where I'm staying. And I've been rock climbing. I've been going to the gym every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes for 2 or 3 hours a day. I've been taking yoga classes, getting back into a little bit of light weight training and a little bit of cardio between walking and jogging. I started working with my nutritionist again. I had taken a break with everything with my dad, got back into working with the personal coach that I've been working with for several years. So kind of getting back to some of my goals and routines and habits. And yeah, yoga was super helpful to decompress and kind of regulate myself and process some of the things that have been happening now. We also had some fun nights. Me and my best friend, we did a painting night, and we went to an Italian food festival. We did some thrift shopping. We got frozen yogurt. I'm personally not a fan of frozen yogurt in Mexico. Most of the ones I've tried are not very tasty, in my opinion, but frozen yogurt in the US, in my opinion, is delicious. So that was very enjoyable. We got some other fun plans coming up in my remaining time here. So I'm glad I'm able to spend some time with her. We don't see each other that often because she lives here in the US and I live there in Mexico. So I'm glad I was able to just take some time and spend some time with her. So when I'm recording this today, it's actually April 29th, and I finally feel like I'm kind of starting to get back into things, work, creating content again, content for my Spanish business, my health, routines, little by little, putting the pieces back together. And with that, I want to share something that's a little bit different. It's not my April update. It's actually a question that I got from someone recently related to travel. So, how do I manage data in multiple countries? So, here's the question that I got. When you're traveling on one trip to multiple countries, how do you manage the data on your phone? So, I've done a lot of trial and error, and I'll tell you what I've learned. So, the first step is estimating your data needs. So, since I work remotely, I know that a 1 hour Zoom call with my camera turned on, using my phone as a hotspot to my laptop, uses about 1 gig of data. So what I do is calculate how many meetings I have, how many days I'm going to be there, and that gives me an idea how much data I'm going to need. Now, if you're just traveling for fun and you're not working remotely, you might not need a lot of data because you might only be using maps, rides like Uber and other services like that, quick searches, looking up information. So you might only need 1 or 2 gigs of data, especially if you're not staying for an extended period of time. So think about how much you'll need. Then the step 2 is check your coverage. So this matters more than the price because in some countries, and in some cities, there are multiple different cell phone data providers. And some of them might have better packages. They might give you more data. They might have a better price. But that doesn't mean that they're all going to have great coverage where you're going to be. So I research which carriers are strongest in the particular cities that I'm going to be visiting. And yeah, because this can vary a lot. For example, I've visited multiple times the city of Dahab, Egypt, down in the Sinai Peninsula. And I've learned the hard way in all the different places I've stayed. The Wi-Fi is not good enough for Zoom calls. I've tried various different cell phone carriers. I've had multiple cell phone SIM cards, and only one works really well there in Egypt. All the other ones work terrible. So I had to learn that one the hard way. And sometimes you can only get that one provider, like when you're in Cairo. So you got to kind of plan ahead. Anyway, so what I end up doing when I go to Dahab is I buy a SIM card with a lot of data on it. I use that as a hotspot. I don't really use the Wi-Fi at the hotel because I've stayed at multiple hotels and most of them are just not very good in my particular situation where I need strong Wi-Fi for work. Now, if you're just traveling and you just want to look up some information, it's probably completely fine. But if you're doing like heavy streaming needs of like uploading large photo, video, audio files, downloading large video, photo, audio files, Zoom calls, like things like that, then you may have different needs. So some of this might not be relevant for you. But yeah, so check your coverage. And then step 3 is compare your options. So I'll usually compare between an eSIM, which is obviously going to be the most convenient. This is something that you would buy through an app and it would be activated already. So when you land in that country, it's already going to be working. As soon as your plane lands and they tell you you can turn on your phone, you're going to be able to connect to the data and you're going to be able to like do everything you normally do right away. So those are really convenient. Again, pros, instant connection. There's no physical SIM and you buy it before you land. The cons are it's usually more expensive. But if you only need a little bit of data, it might not be that much money. Like sometimes you can pay $8 for 1 gig of data. If you're just going to be there for a couple of days, that may be more than enough. So you may not even want to look at other options. That may be totally fine. But if you're like me, a big data user, then you might want to compare and shop around. So that's one option, is your eSIM. The second option is getting a SIM card at the airport. This is what I do most of the time. Usually it's going to be cheaper and you're going to get more data compared to an eSIM, but you need to know where to buy it. Sometimes it's obvious. It'll say SIM card or the different companies that you'll probably recognize some of the names, but sometimes it's not obvious. For example, in the London airport, the last couple of times I was there, you don't go in, there's like not a shop that is obvious for a cell phone, a SIM card. It's actually in the shop that sells newspaper, magazines, and snacks. So you would need to know that and which one it is, so you know which one to go in, right? And the third option is getting a SIM card in the city, like in the city center. I have done this before in multiple places. Sometimes it's cheaper than the airport. Sometimes the airport is like 2 or 3 times the price of in the city. And if you need to get a lot of data, it could be pretty pricey. Sometimes it's exactly the same price as what you can get in the airport. So just do a little research in advance and figure out what fits your needs most. Maybe you don't feel comfortable not having internet when you first land or when you get out of the airport. There are also offline maps you can download. There are apps that have free offline maps for different countries. So that way you at least can like navigate and get around until you buy your SIM card in the city, if it makes sense in your case to even do that. But that's a whole lot of logistics. You may not feel comfortable with that. You may not want to go that route. Anyway, and the step 4, after you evaluate which of those options you want to go with, is researching the logistics ahead of time. So check things like, is the SIM shop open when you land? Because maybe your flight lands in the middle of the night and maybe they're not open at that time. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. It depends on the country, depends on the provider, depends how many flights come in the middle of the night. Is it in your terminal? I've landed in terminals where there's no SIM card there and you have to take all your freaking luggage and walk like a quarter mile. There's a huge line and there's no shade and you're outside in Africa waiting to buy your SIM card. So something to plan ahead for, because obviously that's going to take more time. So if you have someone picking you up, you need to have that in mind that you're going to get your SIM card. And do they accept card or only cash? Because some places are only cash and sometimes they only take local currency. Sometimes they take foreign currency if it's major one like US dollars, euros, etc. But it's something that you would want to research in advance. For example, in India, it's particularly difficult to get a SIM card as a foreigner. There's been issues of like public safety and things of that nature related to SIM cards in the past. So it's that way on purpose. I found that out after I arrived. So they don't even sell SIM cards in the airport. I went to a market and I went to cell phone shops that sell SIM cards for locals. And I went to a bunch of them and I spent several hours. I probably spent like 5 hours trying to figure it out. And that was not possible. And I've never had that situation before. So that's why I say it's good to research it ahead of time. Had I known that, I could have just bought the eSIM in advance and I could have saved myself all that time and hassle, because that would have been the best and realistically only option in India, at least when I went in my situation. Maybe your situation's different. So just check those details in advance, learn from my hard learned mistakes. And then step 5, always bring your passport. So nearly every country is going to require your passport to register a SIM when you purchase it. And sometimes they won't accept a copy or a photo. So you sometimes do need to have the original passport. So I'd recommend having it with you, but obviously take precautions when you do that, because your passport's very valuable and going to be difficult to replace. And step 6, my personal travel hacks. These have saved me so many times. So I recommend keeping a SIM card tool in your phone case. I actually have one in my phone case at all times, because you never know when you're going to need it. And sometimes there's a line for people putting their SIM card in. So yeah, if you have your own, you can just skip all of that. You don't need it, right? But it will make your life easier. I also recommend taking a piece of tape, whether it's scotch tape, masking tape, whatever type of tape, packing tape, and put it inside your phone case. So like, if this is my phone case, I would put the tape in here. The reason being that when you buy a physical SIM card, if that's what you choose to do, you take out your home country SIM card, you probably don't want to lose it because it probably has your local phone number on it and it might be difficult / challenging to replace. Plus, at some points during your trip, you may need to switch the SIM cards out so you can receive like verification text messages or certain phone calls through your local number if you're expecting any of those. So keeping that piece of tape inside your phone case, you can take your home SIM card, place it under the tape so it's completely surrounded by the tape, and then you won't lose it. Because if you just place it in your wallet, it may fall out somewhere. Ask me how I know. I've seen it happen. Not to me though, but I've seen it happen. And also that piece of tape also serves for if you're going to get SIM cards in multiple different countries, you can store any of the ones that you've been using in there. Now, it's not necessarily going to serve you in the future if you're not going to come back to that country for a couple of years. It's probably not necessary to keep, but maybe you have a layover in that country on the way back, or maybe you're going to stop over again or something like that. You would want to connect your phone back up and either add more data to it, or maybe your data is still active. So I would recommend doing that, keeping your SIM cards in there. It's super simple, but it works really well. So to summarize that whole thing, how I decide whether I'm going to use an eSIM card, a SIM card purchased at the airport, or SIM card purchased in the city is based on time versus money, data needs, country logistics. So I normally would use an eSIM when it's a short stay, if it's a complicated country, or if I just want the convenience. I would normally use a physical SIM when I'm staying longer, I need a lot of data, or I want the best value. So putting it all together, we'll take one step back. So April wasn't about adventure for me. It was about showing up for my family, myself, and the life that I'm building. And now I'm stepping back into both life and travel in the sense of some trips here and there in the US before I go back. Well, I do have a trip to Oaxaca planned in May that I'm very excited about, but before I go back home and get into some local adventures and stuff for the summer. So if you found this video helpful, especially the travel tips, please let me know in the comments. And if you have more questions about traveling while working remotely, or any questions related to travel, I'm happy to answer them in future videos. So just drop them in the comment section below and I can do that. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.